Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Chicago. John Anthony sitting in for Dan Proft, who's probably right now getting on the golf course somewhere or prepping for to go to watch the soccer games at FIFA. I want to thank Dan Proft for, Dan doesn't just let anybody fill in for him. So it's an honor to even be among the people that can fill in for somebody like Dan Proft. We've talked about quite a few things. We talked about guns. We talked about communism, socialism. We talking about even the economy and how so many of the consensus of economists got it wrong. And now there's a question that I've been thinking about. Anybody knows me. I'm a diehard. I love football. And I even had to go through the whole phase where I couldn't tell people I was still watching football because people just didn't know how to handle it. The whole knees and the Colin Kaepernick. I still kept watching football because I love it. I love when football season comes around. I know my buddy Kyle and I, we get together because we're all part of a fantasy group, and we love watching football. Now, when you think about the Chicago Bears, they've played football in Illinois for more than a century. It's not just simply a private business. They are part of the identity, the history, and the economy of this state. To think, which me and Quinn were just talking about, I don't personally believe the Bears are leaving the great state of Illinois. I haven't seen any permits pulled, haven't seen anything done that leans me to the belief that the Chicago Bears are going to leave. And I had on my show, Black and Right, a couple of weeks ago, State Representative Marty McLaughlin. He represents the Illinois 52nd House District, which includes portions of Cook, Kane, Lake, and McHenry counties. Now, this is a guy who understands money. He's a former investment management executive, and he's also a former village president of Barrington Hills. He's introduced a bill that he's proposing that's called the Taxpayer Investment Protection Act, or TIPA, an effort to bring the Chicago Bears back to the negotiation table and keep the team's proposed stadium development in his backyard in Arlington Heights. State Representative Marty, welcome to Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, John. Good morning. How are you today?
I know it's a little early for you.
Hey, listen, you were talking about golf, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be out on the links in about 45 minutes with a bunch of mayors up in Fox Lake. So yeah, I don't think Proft will be at this course. He plays a little more highbrow than I do.
Oh, yeah.
But, I'll be out with some of our mayors in the region. I'm sure this topic will be coming up.
I know it will. Representative, as before we discuss the details of your proposal, I think not only am I, but so many other people they have this question. How did Illinois reach the point where the Chicago Bears are seriously considering leaving this state?
Well, John, the one thing that I've learned being in Springfield is that if they can screw up a simple formula, they will. And, 3 years ago when the Bears put $200 million to buy the property in Arlington Heights, it was not for wetland preservation.
Yeah. And
to imagine that the Bears hadn't identified that as the place that they wanted to be is ridiculous. And and I know all the legislators in Chicago didn't want to have egg on their face and be held responsible when the Bears left Soldier Field. Now, I love Soldier Field. You love Soldier Field. Everyone loves Soldier Field. Here's the problem. They weren't going to own all the property around Soldier Field, and they can do that in Arlington Heights. So it's not just about the stadium. It's about all the regional development that'll go around that stadium, and that's a game changer for the McCaskey family. And frankly, it's a game changer for the region economically, and that's why I want the Bears to be in Arlington Heights and in Illinois, is not just for the stadium and everything that brings, but for all the other economic development in the region.
Now, Representative, you are calling your proposal the Taxpayer Investment Protection Act. What exactly would it protect taxpayers from? Walk us through the financial structure in plain language.
Yeah, so this is a pretty simple, straight business deal. So here's what it does. if the Bears are going to put up a minimum of $2.5 billion, and it'll be more like $5 billion to build the stadium, we're going to propose a negotiated property tax. So they spend $200 million on the property, Arlington Heights, and the Bears get into a room and they say, look, fair value for this property is $500 million or $800 million, whatever they decide. You freeze that number for 30 years, and they pay 2.5% increase on that number. Okay, the Wrigley Field pays about $9 million a year. Most stadiums pay between $8 to $12 million a year on their property. That gives certainty to the Bears, but more importantly, it gives certainty to investors. Because look, the McCaskies are not the Intel chip family. Nothing against them, but they don't really have outside businesses to pump money into the team. So this is their business. So in so doing, they can raise that money. The state then would put in infrastructure up to $1.2 billion to go around the stadium for transportation and things like that that'll bring people in and out of the stadium. Here's the protection part. There will be an audit committee and commission that every year makes sure that all the levying bodies, the taxing bodies in Arlington Heights and Cook County don't back the truck up on the taxpayer. And what I mean by that is that they don't cost shift and say, hey, we're going to be getting $10 million regionally from property tax, but we really know sales tax is coming, so we're going to raise these levies to levels that are ridiculous. Well, when they do that, the audit agency would call foul on the park district, the library district, the school district, and then, frankly, John, you can vote those bums out if they do that. So this audit commission report would be pretty much the check on elected officials that would want to hit the region up for property taxes unnecessarily.
Yeah.
The fourth part is this. There'd be about $70 million in sales tax revenue generated around
if not more.
The stadium. Yeah. And so you do that and you go, hey, this thing is going to be great for the region. It'll pay for all the fire and police services that are needed from the sales tax. And it would be fantastic to sit in that stadium in a year or two and sit back and go, we've got a world-class stadium that can do more than the Bears. It could hold NCAA tournaments, concerts. It would be like Rosemont on steroids if these politicians could just get their egos out of the way and let a business deal go through. And that's why I proposed what I proposed.
Well, you and I both know that the Chicago legislators are upset that the Bears are leaving Chicago, so that they feel like, why should I vote for something? Why should I vote to help Arlington Heights? But you talk about the $1.2 billion in infrastructure, and I think every time I hear people explain the $1.2 billion in infrastructure, no one really explains what that infrastructure is. Now, this is something that is, if anybody was building, the Cubs, the White Sox, because the White Sox are dealing with the same thing. The infrastructure is what? Can you explain? That's like what? The roads and things of that nature.
Right. So, listen, if a major manufacturer was going to come to, say, the middle of DeKalb, right, and it required rail and it required highway to get there, right, we're going to be manufacturing a bunch of new trucks. The state is always on the hook to provide that transportation number. Right. This is not a blank check written to the McCaskies to say, put a few more suites up in the stadium. This is not what I'm proposing at all. I'm saying that if the state needs to put in $700 million or $800 million in roadway to make it accessible, that is what the state should, forecast that they'll be on the hook for. Indiana, right? If this is such a terrible deal economically, why is Indiana bending over backwards?
Yeah.
And by the way, there would be other states that would love to have the Chicago Bears as well, one of the great franchises in the country. I had Urlacher on a podcast. He was losing his mind out in Arizona, Brian, going, this is, he can't imagine, and I can't imagine this being in a different state, John. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we can get this bill going forward. And, I'm a Republican, right? Yeah. The chances of my name on this bill are about zero.
Yeah, they're going to stay. They're going to take it.
Propose a framework and say, hey, guys, steal this thing. Just take it. Take my name off of it. I'll sit back in the back, and then 2 years from now, I'll go to the Bears, 15 minutes from my home. And maybe I'll see a few concerts, NCAA, and I'll sit back and go, well, at least we got something right done out of the legislature in Illinois.
Yeah, Representative, what's the difference between you and your colleague, Dan Ugasti, Representative Ugasti's bill? Well, I mean, explain the difference between what he's trying to get passed compared to what you're trying to get passed? And which one, because I think about that $1.2 billion, where does it come from? The existing transportation funds? Are there going to be new bonds? Is this going to be a dedicated tax revenue generated by the development or the state's general funds?
Well, it would most likely be out of the State Department of Transportation funds. And you and I both know, John, there are a lot of funds in the
billions
roadway. Yes.
They just swept it, right?
Yes, they did. And so this isn't like we're saying, hey, you're going to grab $1.2 billion and write the Bears a check. This would probably be over a 2.5, 3-year period of time. And it would be the money's already in the State Department Transportation funds. They would just have to allocate this for this project. Yeah. What are they, raising the tolls now?
Yeah,
additional
45 cents. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got another bill that I'm asking for us to know before you go through the toll what the charges are. That's another one I'm filing next week.
And where's the money going?
Right. Listen, it's like going in a restaurant, John, with nothing on the menu, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the bill shows up and you said, $27 for a cheeseburger? Are you kidding me? If I knew, I would have never gone to the restaurant.
Well, and
I'm
asking
for that to go through too.
And I should clarify, they're using the interest of what's inside the road fund. They didn't actually sweep the road funds, right? They use the interest that's allocated from that, correct?
Yeah, you're talking about the budget shifting.
The budget shifting. Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, it's a lockbox, John. It'll always stay. It's like Al Gore's lockbox, if you remember. The money will never go out of the lockbox unless the governor and the majority Democrats decide they need it because they can't control their spending. Yeah, the spendocrats have an addiction, and I keep saying, like Sheryl Crow, the first cut's the deepest, guys. You can do it. Let's cut spending a little bit, and then I drive them crazy, but that's my job there, is to point out a little TLC, John, a little truth, logic, and common sense.
Well, Representative, I remember Local 150 hit me over the head when Rauner was trying to sweep the road funds, and now they're just saying, okay, the Democrats, I'm sure they're going to sweeten it with some construction deals so that they can go after that fund and move some of that money, because that's the Chicago way, right?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, John, I say, my friends on the other side of the aisle, every May they look, like they don't know what's going on, right? But then at 4 a.m, magically, money appears out of nowhere. It's the most amazing thing in Springfield. I always say light's the best disinfectant. That's why we pass these dirty, awful bills at 4 a.m. in the dark, But you've been down there, John. You know how it works, unfortunately.
Representative, I'm a little bit perturbed by some of the bills that Governor Pritzker just signed. One of them is Senate Bill 3341, which it allows minors to consent to contraceptive services and supplies without obtaining permission from a parent or guardian. Please explain to me how that's constitutional. That this bill is out there where my child who's 13 can go into and say, I want contraceptives. How are they allowed to get away with this?
Well, John, this is just one of a number of bills in the last 4 or 5 years that parental consent has been removed on many issues. So the state is deciding that they know better than you do as a parent. And, the one thing I've often said is the state will not co-parent with me as it relates to my 5 children. The people down in Springfield believe they know better than you do for your child. So they keep passing these measures, right, for things that they deem important. Now, if your child has an allergy, right, they have to get a parent to sign off at school to get an injection for an allergy, but not for the things that they're interested in, contraception and a number of others. So it's really backwards, John. There's an assault on parental rights coming in certain states, and unfortunately, Illinois, California, and New York are all aligned on this. And it's not a good thing, and it's really not what government's role is supposed to be.
Representative, I one last thing, and I know I'll let you get out there so you can get focused on your what's your handicap too?
Well, my handicap's I'm a former baseball player with a Division III injury. So I'm about a 15, John. I'm about a 15.
But I want to get your take on J.B. Pritzker, and he was I believe it's Brett Baer. And J.B. Pritzker said this.
But do you believe any illegal immigrant charged with or convicted of a felony should be deported?
I think they ought to take the violent criminals and get them out of my state and get them out of the country. I absolutely believe that, but that's not what they're doing. They said they were going after the worst.
You don't help them because you're a sanctuary state, right?
No, we do. If you bring us a judicial warrant, we will bring you all kinds of help on the ground to go get the bad guys. That's what we want. We want the bad guys off the streets. What we don't want is for people to get racially profiled. That's what's happening right now.
Representative, you and I both know that in order for, ICE to carry out their duties, they do not need a judicial warrant to get Pritzker and Johnson to assist them. Why would J.B. Pritzker say something like that, knowing that he's really not helping ICE at this point?
Yeah, if you remember when he said that, it was about a year ago, and it was before the summer when he sent National Guard troops to Chicago. It politically, at that moment, he believed that was the position that would help him. And then 2 months later, he completely reversed his position as it related to the funding and the support of federal troops. So, JB, I always like to say, don't listen to what comes out of his mouth, watch what he does, because there's a lot of hot air that comes out of his mouth, and then he'll do the opposite. He's a political animal. Let's be frank. He should have been in a lot of trouble during the Blagojevich years when they were trying to cut a deal for that Senate seat. So, he has been able to get away with a ton in Illinois. And look, I'm his most hated state rep, John. You know that.
He's coming after you.
They got
Darby.
George Soros. Get this. They got George Soros-funded people walking through my neighborhood. So, a little guy like me, John, out here in Barrington, I can't tell you how much fun I have driving these billionaires crazy. So,
Hey, Representative, here's my question. Last question. Do the Bears stay here in Illinois, and will we be building in Arlington Heights? Does it happen in veto, special session, or lame duck?
I would imagine that it would take until lame duck before this would happen. That's what I would imagine, because I don't think there's enough backroom chatter going on right now about the Bears to get it done in a special session. So that takes us to veto. Veto, everyone will be worried about elections. So I think I think something will happen in lame duck session. That's my prediction.
And that's 2-3 days before the new legislative arm is voted into or sworn into office, right? The new House.
Yeah, and that's where they do all the big things, John. The Safety Act and all that stuff. That's where they do all the big stuff because they figure nobody will be held harmless, responsible. It's kind of backwards, but you understand it better than most, and your analysis is pretty good. So, and John, I'll say this. If any of your listeners want to help a guy like me, Marty4Illinois.com. Any support, check out my videos on there. I've kind of tell it like it is, John.
You and your partner in crime, Chris Miller, man, you guys are probably the two funniest old white men I know.
Well, they stuck us. They sat us next to each other way back in the chamber there.
Yeah. And
I think they did that because we're so close to the men's room that the urinal cake smell is starting to affect both of our thinking.
Go with your 15 handicap. State Representative Marty McLaughlin, Republican representing Illinois' 52nd House District. Thanks so much for joining us, Chicago's Morning Answer.
John, keep up the great work. Thank
you,
for having
brother.
me this morning.
And he joined us on our Alpha Wealth text line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Joint pain is awful when you're the person fighting through it, but I'm betting you aren't the only one affected. Maybe you love someone who struggles with joint pain. It's summer, time to be outside, moving and playing. But you or your loved one is sitting it out again. Hey, it's Dan Proft here. Get your life back. Talk with my friends at QC Kinetics. That's what's happening every day at QC Kinetics. Patients are finding real relief in their hips, knees, shoulders, and backs thanks to regenerative treatment done in the office by Dr. Caravelli and the QC Kinetics medical team. No surgery, no long recovery, just real relief. Inflammation eases, the pain